What's up, and welcome back to Opposites Attract Podcast. This is Sonja Ramirez, your girl, and I am sitting next to
Miguel Ramirez.
I think we should switch that up a little bit because I'm actually.
Are we starting over?
Sitting next to Bill. Oh, how is your day?
Or how was your week?
How is your life?
Going. And today,
it's going that good.
And today we have the pleasure of having a special guest. He is the owner of Sign and Thrive, the author of Sign and Thrive.
Yes.
Also the author of the new book, Supercharge Your Notary Business with LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Both rated 5 stars on Amazon.
What?
Bill Soroka.
Hey, thanks.
Exciting to have you. We do have a live audience.
And it's huge, guys. You should be here.
Ooh, getting into it already, huh? It's huge.
Oh, my. I think last podcast we started by saying we should have been recording before we started recording.
And unfortunately we were, weren't we? Yeah,
So-
well, it's exciting to be here. Thanks for having me again. I love you guys. Love what you're doing here.
Thanks so much, Bill. Yeah, we had a blast last time.
Yes.
The last time Bill was on our podcast, it was episode 31.
31, and here we are at 100 and what?
Five.
105.
Wow. A lot
Yeah.
has happened.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I'm excited to
In
hear.
74 episodes, or
Right.
is my math wrong?
Oh,
Yeah.
don't. Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't.
all right.
Yeah. 74.
Yeah, we're just going to go with yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not going to start.
Don't make me do math already.
It's too early, buddy. Even though, hey, it's too early.
It's
Cheers.
5 o'clock here.
Yeah, it is. They don't know what time it is.
I know, right? This is the first time I'm actually enjoying whiskey, though.
Yeah, it's
Really?
good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and a ginger makes everything better.
Oh.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys are not watching this, you need to watch it.
And go
And
pour
you'll get the joke.
and go pour a drink.
Yes, pour a drink, right?
So yeah, Bill, we've had a lot of things have changed, since you were here last time. You've written a new book.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, last time was a while ago, so the world has changed for everybody.
It really has. Crazy.
So, yeah.
Crazy time for sure. Yeah. It's been, I think we're working on 15 months now since the first book, Sign and Thrive, How to Make 6 Figures as a Mobile Notary and Loan Signing Agent came out.
Yeah.
And then over the pandemic summer in 2020, my friend and collaborator, Sandra Long, and I released the second book. So that was a weird time, but an awesome time to do it.
Yes.
And that's been, again, another amazing experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when was the thought to start the new book?
Yeah, that's interesting because the first book, I talk about this a lot, but it took me 3 years and kind of a lifetime to get the courage to write it, or the discipline to sit down and write it and then release it. The second book, I think Sandra and I talked in April. We were brainstorming this book and about the value it can bring to our community because LinkedIn is such an effective tool for building relationships. Mm-hmm. So we said, hey, why don't we write a book about this? And from April to we launched it the same day a couple years later on November 7th.
Wow. Hey, 7 lucky number.
Notary Public Day.
That's super cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So I was just thinking back, and those of you that have not watched episode 31, you need to go back and watch episode 31. And you shared a little bit of your story, right? Because to me, I see you, and to me, you are the definition of success. You're humble. You always look for a way to give back. Anytime I watch, whether it's going onto your website or reading your book, it's always about providing value to the people and helping others. And I believe that that's why you are blessed, because you continue to look for the ways to bless others. Especially with, new notaries. They could read that book and already have a great start as long as they put what they learn into action, and so those of you, Bill and I, that's how we actually met.
Yeah.
Was, I decided to open up Trust Inc. I actually just stumbled upon your YouTube video and I felt like I connected with you through your video because you're so personable, and there's something about you that just makes you very unique. I don't know. I can't describe it. But when I watch other videos and I'm like, no, this is not the person. this is not the person that I could connect to immediately when I saw your videos. There's just something you're just very down to earth.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I appreciate what you've been able to do for us because, I mean, it's changed our life.
Yeah. And a quick testimonial.
And many others.
I mean, just that book. I mean, something that we've done and Sonja's done is like for our personal family, people that are looking for something else to do, that's what we recommend to them. Like, here, read this book, because that's kind of like the test for people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Here's this book, and then come back to me when you're done, and we'll get you going.
Yep.
Yeah.
But, some do, some don't.
Yep.
But the ones that have taken the initiative to do it are doing great.
Yeah. Matter of fact, my sister went on and purchased your course, and she is doing
Yeah.
so well.
Oh,
Ruby
good.
Sapien is my
Oh, that's
sister.
right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And she's doing very well. I mean, she is changing her life.
I love hearing that.
Yeah, she's paid off debt, like her car. She's looking to now buy a house. It's just a blessing. And you had a part of that. Like,
Wow.
I connected her to you, your information.
Yeah.
She did what she said she was going to do. And we got her up and running. And
I
she's
love
doing
to hear
amazing.
that. I love to hear that. That's the thing about this business. And you're right. I've sold tons of copies of that book, and some people take action and some don't. But when you do take action, this business is a lot more than just knowing how to sign and stamp some papers.
Right. It's about connecting with people.
Connecting with people, and it can be a vehicle that can change your life, the life of your signers, the life of your clients. It's been amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And it's important to, I mean, your mentorship helped me create what I have today, just having you there,
I love being a part of it. I love to see where you guys are going.
And that's why you're so successful, because you truly care about your fans.
I do. I'll tell you, I have an amazing audience, and I feel really blessed because we do have one of the most loving communities that happen to be notaries right now, mobile notaries and loan signing agents. But really, I think we've done a good job, probably through what you were trying to describe in the videos, is we've attracted people who respond to that authenticity, that down-to-earthness, that caring and giving for other people.
Yeah.
Let me help you. No.
I know.
It's the
No,
arm,
you're good.
like,
Well, and I talk with my arms.
No,
and
you're
I
fine.
have
So
to
do
make
I.
eye contact. So there's some challenges for sure, but I think that's what it is. And I'm inspired by my audience every day, from their kindness towards one another, from my students, my mentees, everybody who takes this on and creates their dream life and then reaches back and helps other people do it. I think that truly is the magic. And one of my favorite quotes from Maya Angelou was, there is no success without helping others. And I think that's oftentimes forgotten. And it's not to judge it or anything, but you're in the hustle, you're trying to make things happen, and sometimes you can forget to reach back. But that's an important element to bring to your consciousness.
right.
Yeah.
So you do remember that critical component to it.
Yeah, it's like the Zig Ziglar quote too. Yeah, when you help enough people get what they want, you can have everything that you want.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's truth to these.
And
Yep.
so even though you guys are getting to experience the successful Bill Soroka actually, before he went through many challenges, 26 businesses, 26
Yeah.
other businesses,
26
heartache,
flops.
challenges. I mean, all of it that you've went through that created the man that's sitting next to me.
Yeah, and I wouldn't change anything about it either. You know, there's 26 different businesses and ventures that I tried, flopped, failed, hit rock bottom, really rock bottom, and finally had that what they call the come to Jesus talk, you know, where
Right.
you're like, all right, so what is it?
Yeah.
Why can other people do this and you can't? What was the difference? And I think we got a chance to talk about that too, discovering that, number one, it's 100% responsibility. You got to stop blaming economies, business partners,
Yeah.
other people altogether, and own that. And it sucks to realize that
Look in the mirror.
you are the common denominator
Yeah.
through all of this. And that hurts a little bit, but it's also super empowering.
Yeah.
Because if it's all me, then it's all me.
Then you can fix it.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Let me ask you a personal question.
Yeah.
What did you come to realize? What was that thing that was holding you back from moving forward? What was that thing that kept you back?
Well, it's real easy to get logical in my brain about this and say it's habits and routines, which it absolutely was. But the reality is, like on the emotional level, I thought I was really fucking special. I thought I was so special I didn't need habits and routines. I thought I could be the one that didn't have to do all those things that people who are successful tell you need to do. And that wasn't true. Those habits of personal growth that get you in the right mindset every day, those habits of building authentic relationships so you connect with people on a genuine level. So you're not just that guy who's, oh, I've got something to sell or I've got something I need to create, so I'm only going to connect for that reason. Yeah. Like putting all that time, all of that into it, investing into yourself to do those things is what I was trying to avoid. I was trying to skip the work because I thought I was going to be the exception to the rule.
So when you were before that, were you more like of a free spirit, or when it comes to me, it comes to me and I'll just do it when I feel it?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. The riding the inspiration wave, I used to call it. I'd just sit back and wait for the inspiration. And when the inspiration struck, it was beautiful. You know, it's almost like you've got this ecstasy going through you. You feel it. You're in the zone and everything just flows, but it doesn't stay around all the time. Sometimes you got to do the work even when you don't feel like doing the work. And that's what I didn't do. I used to do all the logo designs, the website designs.
The fun stuff.
Yeah. Picking the tagline out, picking the names. But I have so many domain names. I still do that. That's like a hobby of mine.
Yeah.
But I would skip the real work.
Yeah.
The work part. And then you started partying all night. I celebrated all the time. Look at this great 20 logos I made for my new business. Yeah, I'm a serial entrepreneur, you know, like I'm kind of a big deal, but I didn't have the results to back it up.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then I'd sleep in till 10 o'clock in the morning and miss out on the real power of the day.
So once you, I know I'm asking a bunch, but once you kind of got on the path, how did the old free spirit and the new discipline, how did that kind of balance itself out? Because I imagine like the free spirit side's not just going to disappear.
You know, it's if you would have asked me this 10 years ago, I would have never believed it. But the reality is freedom comes from discipline.
Discipline equals freedom?
Yeah.
You know, that's a quote from a Navy SEAL commander.
Is it really?
Jocko Willink?
Jocko
Yes.
Willink.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well,
I have it on my
that
on my
guy knows what he's
jiu-jitsu
talking
gi.
about.
On the sleeve of my jiu-jitsu gi, it says discipline equals freedom.
It is so true, and it feels like, and I'm sure if you're listening and you're a free spirit that has resisted habits and routine your whole life, I was there. It doesn't feel like that would be true. I used to make fun of the people who would like leave parties early because they were going to practice for the marathon the next morning. I was like, you're missing out on what life is all about. It's the social connection. And there could be some truth to that sometimes, right? You don't want to be so rigid that you miss out on things.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that discipline that it takes to prioritize what is really important to you. And I think that's also part of this too, is having a vision, a higher vision for your life, what you want to create, what are your priorities? Yeah. So you know where to apply your discipline. And that kind of clarity, if I hadn't had it, I would never have the freedom that I have right now. Like I have time to do the things I love. I have the means to do the things that I love. I have resources now that I never would have had I not rein myself in. But for me, and I don't recommend this, I had to hit rock bottom to feel that and to finally get it.
Wow. I can 100% relate to you. 100%. Because I am that free spirit. Yeah. Right? See, but what gets me, even till this day, is that because I'm spiritual and they say that you need to listen to yourself. Like if there's a day, like I've been having some situations like with my back and it's been just challenging lately, right? And I want to go to jiu-jitsu, then I have this, and then just life is so busy and it's like, okay, do I continue to move forward? My spirit, like I'm feeling like I need to take time off. How can you discern, okay, this is my, spirit telling me, okay, you need to slow down, take some time off? Or is it the lazy me saying, hey, you got this
excuse?
Yes. How are you able to discern from the two? How was there anything that helped you to recognize that.
I love that you even brought this up, because I think this is one of those conversations that is not had is not had enough. So one of the biggest challenges for me is that the voice of spirit, whatever you make that mean, whether it's your internal dialogue, whether it is spirit, whether it's God, if it's whatever you've got going on, it sounds the exact same as the inner critic in the ego that berates you, tears you down, protects who you were. So the voice is the same, the tone's the same, sometimes a little more harsh, but how do you know if it's your higher self or your lower self dragging you back or pulling you forward? And it's not as crystal clear. There are some things that I've been able to do that help me discern, but I still struggle with that. Because there are times where I'm like, should I be walking away from this project? Or is that my fear or resistance about that project trying to turn me away? And I think half the challenge and the journey of personal development or spiritual development is figuring that part out. So what has helped is having my higher vision crystal clear in front of me every single day. And you know, when I was in my full hustle mode, I used to have that thing in front of me 3 or 4 times a day, just reading my vision, just reminding me, hey, this is where you're going. This is the impact. This is the legacy you want to leave on the world. And then you can actually have that conversation. You're like, is this going to help me leave the legacy I want to leave? Is this going to get me to the next level? It's not always going to be enjoyable. And I think that's the challenge too, because we want it to be fun. We want it to be a free spirit, but I think a lot of growth comes from the resistance and the challenge. So you don't want to take the path of least resistance every single time, because then you don't grow. You grow through the challenges. So you've got to push yourself through there and know that, all right, if I work through this and I get to this point, am I going to be closer to my vision? Is it pulling me forward, or is that my fear? And it gets a little clearer, but it still doesn't offer that crystal clarity.
So that's something ongoing, that it's just ongoing.
I think that's one of the, you know why I think a lot of people don't do personal development? Because it sucks sometimes.
Oh, yes.
And there's so many false peaks. You know, you get to a certain level, and I kind of shared this even with my book too. You get to this peak and you're like, okay, I've done this. Oh, there's another peak. And I'm reminded, you know, when I was, I think 20 or 21 years old, I was hiking up Humphrey Peak in Flagstaff, highest peak in Arizona. And I remember just climbing. I'd see the peak right there, and I'd get there, and then there's another peak
behind it
that you can see, and you're like, oh my gosh, it took me 5 hours to climb up that thing. And then you hike up to that peak, and there's still another peak and another peak. And that's the path of personal development sometimes. And I think it turns people off in the first place, right? It's super intimidating. It's this giant mountain in front of you. And then you get the courage to do it. And then there's another peak and another peak. So when they say that success is a journey, not a destination, I think this is kind of what was being implied there. And it's so true.
And I think we're feeling that, right? Like you have to continue to get better with each level, because if you stay stagnant, you're not going to get to the next level, right? Exactly. Like you got to continue to challenge yourself and push yourself to get to the next level.
Yeah. You have to, because there's plateaus in between there, right? So you hit this level and you're like, oh, everything's good. No need to do anything else. I make plenty of money. I'm feeling good. And then I think at some point you feel this longing inside. And you're like, something's still not, because you need that challenge. You need to grow. I think as human beings here, we're supposed to be learning and expressing something new and experiencing something new all the time. Yeah. It's not about complacency. It's about movement.
So you were talking about leaving something to start something else, but also like sometimes you like you were saying, you don't know if you like, is that the quitter in me that's given up on this thing? Because people are going to be like, oh, he gave up on that thing and now he's starting something else. But there was a book that we listened to, Own the Day, Own Your Life, by Aubrey Marcus.
Love that book.
And he was talking about how he used to play basketball, and his focus, his vision was to be a professional basketball player. But I think he kind of started realizing, he's like, in college, he's like, some of the guys are faster, maybe they're bigger, they're just better. But that was his passion. Like he was in 100%. But then at a certain point, he realized like it wasn't going to happen, and he started this other business, and that business turned out to be what he really wanted to do, and it blew up. But if he wouldn't have left basketball, he would have never started his business, which is like a human optimization. Like he's an author, and it's like all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it's had a tremendous impact on my life too. And I think that's really important too. I think as a society, we've shamed quitting. We've shamed failing. So people are afraid to let that go. You hear quitters never win, and winners never quit.
Never quit. Yeah.
And there's obviously there's some truth to all of this stuff, but you got to think about what's motivating the quit. You know, if you're quitting because you're retracting, that's different than if you're quitting because you're expanding.
See, I had to go through that with Legal Shield because, I mean, I was Legal Shield for over a decade, you know, and I went through that fight. Right. And it was difficult. It was very difficult to let that go because that's what I was known as. I was known as a Legal Shield girl.
That's how we met.
Everywhere. That's how we met. I mean, we're partners in Legal Shield. You know, and I fell in love with Mobile Notary and Trust Inc. And that was exciting and it's great. But I didn't have to leave Legal Shield. It's just my passion shifted elsewhere. And I feel that it will come full circle. We've been talking about that, you know, because it's just part of, you know, it's in the same area that we're working. But it's very difficult to change. Is difficult for everyone, especially if you feel that this is who you are. This is what, you know.
You've got the identity piece behind it.
Right.
And I don't know if you can relate to this or not. Sometimes I work in absolutes. You know, sometimes I think I'm this really great free spirit and I'm totally relaxed about everything, but then you start drilling down and I'm like, I really am kind of a black and white thinker sometimes. I'm like, well, it's either this or this. It doesn't have to always be that. It can be this and this. And it's not always linear straight line. It's a spiral, you know, so sometimes you can come full circle around to things and still be growing upwards. Still come back to the same. Area.
And I think the biggest thing of it all is, like you said, self-reflection, like really being able to diagnose, are you happy doing what you're doing? Like, are you being true to who you really are? And most people, when things aren't going their way, they look outward versus inward.
Totally.
And I think that's been the biggest difference ever for me, to learn who am I instead of focusing on others, because I was a big people pleaser. I wanted everybody to like me. And I know that's something that you can relate to, you know, as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think kind of what you're speaking to is in the realm of emotional intelligence. And if we're going to be leaders, either of self or of others, we have got to have awareness of what's happening inside our bodies. And of course, awareness of what's happening to others around us, that emotional wake, that ripple effect of how we show up in the world. I think that's really important. But that self-reflection piece is a huge component of loving yourself. And if you can't love yourself, how can others love you? That kind of thing.
Right.
So you've got to be aware of what's happening inside so you can adjust. And again, it goes back to that vision. You've got to know what impact and legacy you want to lead or leave.
Yeah.
So here you are following your path, and you're, you know, at a good place. When people see you, they're like, man, Bill is
kicking
successful.
ass and
He's
taking
kicking
names.
ass, doing all this.
Yeah.
And last time we talked to you is 2 days after you just launched this book. You know, what has changed? Share with us, you know, maybe some challenges you've gone through, some things that you know that you had struggles with, or, you know, share with us what has Bill gone through since episode 31. What are some awakening moments for you and things that you had to reflect on and in order to move forward and be where you're at today?
Yeah, great question. Obviously, there's been a lot, you know, and I talk about here in the beginning, I talked about my audience that I have. I have a amazingly loving audience of mobile notaries and loan signing agents that are just a joy to work with. I'm so fired up and passionate about it that every day of my life working feels like I'm not working because I love it so much.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's a slippery slope sometimes, right? Because
Yeah.
I can tend to overwork a little bit, but I absolutely love it, and I consider my business my masterpiece.
That's awesome. That's
huge.
That's a freaking great way to build a business and look at it as your masterpiece.
Man.
And the cool
That's
thing
a
about
dream.
it is, and the cool thing about a masterpiece is that it may not ever be done.
Yeah, they're always adding a little.
I can always learn more. Like, this is a personal growth vehicle for me too. I get to learn and expand and become who I need to be.
Yeah.
To lead this community, to lead this business, to create, and I have to think about the future and the vision about where things are going and help others get there. And then also becoming a mentor and finding my own mentors at various different peaks, right? Every peak has a wise man at the top, and I've got to find that sage and get that advice.
For some people, you are that wise man.
Exactly.
And how is that? Like, knowing that you are that wise man for your people. Like, do you feel like a sense of responsibility? I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Or like, is there a sense of pressure because of that as well? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, well, definitely responsibility for sure, and pressure in the best way possible, because I think it's like being in a pressure cooker, and you know that meal's going to be delicious, but it's still got to become something, right? So I feel like it's helping me become a better leader. I have to do lots of self-reflection because there's a lot of things I don't like to do, but in my role I need to do, and I've got to be able to, the responsibility I have to coach people down a path that's going to serve them, because it's not always rah, rah, rah.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's like, hey, this isn't right for you, or hey, you got to look at things from this perspective and all of that. So that's all been an amazing lesson. But I would say, honestly, the challenge that I've had, and that's kind of what I'd like to talk about a little bit today, is that even though, so Sign and Thrive, the book, when it came out, it has been an Amazon #1 bestseller.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Every single day, because that's how Amazon does it, since it released 15 months ago.
Wow.
Almost to the day. What day is it? February 6th or 7th?
6th.
Yep.
Yeah, so like tomorrow would be the 15-month anniversary of it. And that's super exciting. And it's been an amazing ride in that regard, but soon after my last podcast trip with you, I started feeling something different than excitement. It launched, it went great. You know, the associations that are for notaries supported it. They continue to support it. Tons of people are buying the book. And I was excited, and I still am excited. You know, I love it, but I was also experiencing a different emotion that I couldn't identify. And what it did is it caused me to withdraw. And I was withdrawing. You know, my life is spent on YouTube. I'm a YouTuber when you really boil this down, right?
Yeah.
And I started avoiding the camera.
Wow.
I didn't want to be in public. I didn't want to do like book signings and stuff too. I was feeling really shy and insecure about it for some reason. And I couldn't identify it. And as the months progressed, I will say that just about a month ago is when this started to alleviate. And I have been seeking, like, what's happening inside. I was afraid it was like a low-grade depression. I was just like, something's just off with this thing. Why? This book is doing amazing. People are raving about it. The reviews are amazing. So why am I not experiencing this high joy with that book? So what it felt like, and I just a metaphor for your listeners, because I really don't know how else to describe it, but creating that book, like I said, took 3 years. It was 3 years of writing. But when I was 4 or 5 years old, I knew I wanted to write a book. I was like, I'm going to be a writer. So, you know, there's a lot of pressure on myself, I think, when that was happening. Plus there was, I don't know how to quite explain that, but it meant more than just self-publishing a book. Mm-hmm. You know,
it's a lifelong goal.
It was a lifelong goal, plus 3 years of actually writing it. So then
this was your baby.
It was
right?
my baby.
This was your baby, man.
So that's actually the analogy that I use. So this was my baby. It took 3 years of gestating, right? Of just creating this. And then I share so much vulnerability in that. I talk about my story. I talk about my failures. I talk about things, so, geeking out when I was a kid with fake eyeglasses and giant, such
having your briefcase. Had to carry it on the briefcase.
Exactly. So I'm sharing all that, and I'm putting that out in the world. And I'm also terrified that I'm going to be found out, right? That imposter syndrome. They're going to find out I don't know what I'm talking about.
I get that.
He does that.
I have that feeling at work all the time. Like, somebody's going to make me. I'm like, what the fuck's this guy doing? Get him out of here.
Exactly. It's terrible. It's a terrible feeling. And so when I published it, there was this extreme high followed by this extreme terror that I was going to be found out and people are going to judge me and all of that. So
that's scary.
What it felt like. So the analogy or the metaphor that I use is I feel like I went through postpartum depression, quickly followed by empty nest syndrome because the book launched and it did well and it took on a life of its own and it didn't need me anymore. So it's like, all right, I'm putting this baby out in the world and then I got to deal with that. And then all of a sudden it's taken off.
That is crazy.
And
that's a crazy way to look at it.
And it doesn't need you anymore.
It doesn't need me anymore. So everything, because that goes back to what you talked about with your identity. I put my identity
for 3 years
into this book, creating it. And then I'm terrified that it's not going to do well. And then it does. And then it's like, oh, bye.
Then it takes off.
It doesn't need me anymore. I'll just mail you a check. It's like
empty nester syndrome, which that's what, that's what parents go through when their kids go and, grow and they're out and
I explained that to my mom. She's like, yeah, that's just kind of exactly how it is.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I wasn't prepared for that. There's no judgment on this. Like, there's nothing I would change about this whole situation, except that I would have loved to have expected it. And I would have loved to have a support to talk about it. And so what happens is, especially because it's experiencing some success, you don't know what it is. So you're blaming other things.
Right,
you're thinking something else is wrong with me.
You're trying to make sense of it.
Depression. I'm like, and I'm supposed to feel excited and I don't.
Yeah.
And when I try to talk to other people about it, they're like, get over it.
Right.
Your book's
your book's kicking ass. Like, what?
What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you? So then I don't have anybody to talk to. Then even within the creative community, finding other authors, because I'm in part of a community, I can't find anybody who's having the same experience. So I'm feeling really isolated. I'm going to these online events because then the pandemic hit, of course. So I'm at these creative online events and I'm posting in the chat to all these world-renowned speakers and they're just skipping right over my question. They're not answering them. I'm like, am I just being a drama queen here, right? Like,
now you start looking at
there
yourself.
is something wrong. And then finally, I was at a Gathering of the Creatives that's put on by Jacob Norby and Julia Cameron in December of 2020. And I got this one speaker. She's written like 26 books or something. And I just posted, hey, here's what I was experiencing. Is this normal? And have you experienced it? And she was going through the questions. She just stopped in her tracks and she's like, almost started crying. She's like, I am so glad somebody brought this up.
That's cool.
And she started talking about the grief that comes after publication.
That's crazy.
Because because of all those things that I just described, you put so much of yourself into something and it doesn't make it bad. It doesn't make it sad. It's just a loss and that you have to process and you have to come to terms with. And then I got to thinking, well, not everybody is going to experience this, right? Because I don't think everybody has the same amount of heart or passion or vulnerability in it.
Yes.
So I've been thinking, as soon as you invited me to be on here, I was like, well, how can I identify or separate this? And there's really no, I'm not an expert. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know all this stuff. I'm still kind of going through it.
You self-process a lot, which is amazing. That's something we've learned to do.
And I like to find framework because if you can teach it, you can the best way to learn is to teach it.
Yes.
So I tried to create a framework so I could figure this out and talk to other people about it. And I would love to have
I hear another book coming out.
I know. It will probably be a book.
Another Amazon bestseller.
Amazon bestseller coming out in April. And who knows? It might be because we're just in the stages of this, and I want to find other creatives that have experienced this as well.
So if you are a creator and if you experience this,
well, definitely. Well, and here's the thing: like, I don't think it's just authors. I think it could be painters that have their gallery opening. Miguel, I think you were talking about comedians.
Yeah,
who put
comedians
so
go through that.
much.
So yeah, I know that at least for some comedians, but I've heard like they have kind of like a schedule. So they'll start writing a special and they'll go to the different clubs and they work out and they tweak it to make it perfect. It's just like editing.
Yeah.
So they'll edit it for about a year in the different clubs, and then they shoot a special. And then they'll tour for a year in the bigger things, and then they shoot a special. But once the special comes out, it's over.
It's done, right?
Like all that stuff is gone, and then you're starting back from scratch, and those jokes are never hear them again.
don't astronomers go through something like this?
I don't know.
No?
Astronomers
Or astronauts? Yeah, once they hit,
Yeah,
right?
once they
Astronauts.
discover a star, I mean, how do you come back from that?
Well,
Right, that too. I mean,
Well, you know what? I think that's kind of like the lifelong goal, like what you were saying you were feeling afterwards. Like now, I've always wanted to write a book, and now I wrote a book.
Yeah.
And it
now what?
I think there's a false peak. You got the false
That-
peak
yeah,
thing happening
exactly.
again, and then I think you've got the grief part too. And I think you're right with astronauts.
yeah.
Well, a lot of them go through this depression
Yeah.
because they've seen the world in a way that
Now
very
what?
few people have. So
Yeah.
there's probably definitely something to that too. So, but again, there's some varying degrees here, right? It's not just about publishing a book or creating an art piece. There's some elements to it. So I was going to I found 4 elements that I'm feeling like have to tie into this thing. The first one is the gestation period. And the gestation period is just the development of something over a period of time. So I think the amount of time.
Thank you for explaining for people like me. I'm like fucking gestate. All right.
He's like, we told him no big words.
All right.
So there's that period of time that's invested in something. I think that plays a role in it. Then the emotional connection or the bond you have, what it means to you. What have you made it mean? This is the identity piece. This is what you might think the world, the impact to the world, all those things that we tie into it and make something mean. And then the other huge factor on feeling like this, I think, is the vulnerability piece. And Brene Brown has the best vulnerability.
Yes.
Definition,
She's on
I
Netflix,
think.
by the way. Netflix, you can watch it on Netflix.
You got to watch it. Her YouTube on vulnerability, I highly recommend it. But her definition of it is uncertainty, risk of emotional exposure. And I think to the degree of your vulnerability is going to have an impact on the amount of grief that you experience with that loss.
Which, at the end, is what helps heal.
Yeah, it certainly can, for sure. And then, but I think that's also the relatability piece. There's so much. So, and the reason that I put that in there is like some books aren't vulnerable. Some books are textbooks. Some books are real matter of fact. Like even my second book.
Step 1, step 2, step 3.
It was very matter of fact. I loved it, but it has a different vulnerability level than my first book. So, but then the fourth piece, and this is the big piece, is you have to publish it to others to, I think, feel that grief. And maybe not. Maybe I'm just speaking out of my own, because maybe writing something and then tuck it in a drawer still is a grieving process. I haven't experienced that, but I think you have to publish it because there's this build up of that, again, that level of vulnerability, because publishing is a level of vulnerability that you cross that level, you can't go back.
Yeah.
So other people are going to be judging your work. They're going to be experiencing it. So I think that publication piece is a huge part of creating this, what I call creative grief. And when you try to find it, if you Google creative grief, all that comes up is people who use the creative process to get through grief. But grief is often associated with death, dying, breakups, divorce, and things like that. And that's very painful. But this brings me to really kind of my big point in this whole thing is, and I just learned what this is because I have a coach who taught me what disenfranchised grief is.
I knew another big word was coming.
I know. I kind of laid the foundation
Hold on
for
a second.
it.
What was that again?
So it's called disenfranchised grief. And it's, there's obviously some psychological definition for that, but it's basically where you don't get societal permission to grieve. And it kind of speaks to...
Is it kind of like you're supposed to be happy, so
Exactly.
you're not allowed to be sad?
It's the people who say, get over it. Man, your book's a bestseller. Why do you have to grieve? Why is this a loss to you? Or you're making money doing that. Why is that a loss?
And you probably felt a sense of guilt because you're having all this success. So why are you sad? Why are you going through this?
There is that process because I didn't know what I was going through either, because there's nobody sharing this information. So here I was, and then you shut down, whenever you try to talk about something. And this is the thing with disenfranchised grief is it tends to gain momentum and there's no one to support you. There's no one to talk about. So it just grows and it's festering underneath there. And no one knows how to support. I mean, some people obviously do, but you get shut down. You stop talking about it.
Yeah, especially
how many people can I talk to about this because they just don't
get
it.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm thinking especially when you're a solo, when your business is like mainly like a one person, like at least for us, if it happens to us, I have Sonja to talk to. She has me to talk to. Like we're in this thing together. But when you're like maybe a comedian or a solo artist or a solo entrepreneur, a lot of times the other people don't understand exactly what that person is going through. Like their success, but also the other side of it.
And you're a man, and the stigma is that men are not supposed to be vulnerable, and they see that as a weakness,
That is such a huge factor. Yeah, that's just a huge factor. There's this expectation of strength.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to feel sad. We're not supposed to emote about this kind of stuff, and especially creative stuff, that is a success. There's all these layers to it on it. But the solopreneur piece is huge. And then when you have, when you're in a leadership role, sometimes people only see one side of you and they don't see the other side, and they're not, they just don't.
And the other part of being a leader sometimes is that when you're having trouble, you're not going to the people that are following you to talk to them about your trouble.
Exactly.
Like we've always learned, like the compliments and the praise goes down and the problems and criticisms go up. Like you need to talk to the people above you about that stuff.
Your coach.
But you don't bring that down to the people that follow you.
Absolutely. That's huge.
And that's tough when you're going through something because sometimes you feel like you don't have anybody to talk to.
There's that little bit of silo stuff that starts to happen. But there's that's why the sage advice from the wise people at the top of the mountains, your coach, coaches and mentors are extremely important to me. Therapists, if you need them. Other part of what you're talking about too, and I think Brene Brown again says it so good, is when you're in the rumble, be in the rumble and you don't talk about it. Share your scars, not your wounds. And I think that's really important. So I'm just now, this is the first time I've been able to talk about this. So
you have to let them heal.
Let them heal. Because if it's an open wound, then you're still really vulnerable to attack and bacteria and whatever that is. You can make a situation worse. You got to figure it out. Go through the rumble, figure that part out, and then you can share it and help other people express it. But like if you would have asked me to talk about this 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I wouldn't have been ready because I wasn't there. I couldn't even.
You were still in it.
I was still in it.
Well, you know what? Like in my head, I'm thinking to myself, like if you're the leader or like the general, right? At least these are my analogies anyway, right? And you have the people that are following you, like you said, show them your scars, not your wounds. If you come back and they see that you got all these wounds and you got the shit beat out of you, and they're like, that's my lead. Like, I can't do what he does, and he got the shit beat out of him. And really it's scary. And they may not go for it. But when you can come back with scars and be like, look, I did go through this, and I'm okay.
Yeah, look
you can do it too.
Look at this one. Yeah,
right.
We got this. You can get through it.
Yeah, and on the last podcast, we kind of got a little bit into therapy, not too much, but I know sometimes therapy is looked at as like
frowned upon,
taboo, or like,
yes.
oh,
Stigma.
there's something wrong with him.
Right.
That's why he goes to therapy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, what are your thoughts on therapy?
I am proud to say that I go to a therapist on a regular basis, and it is probably, we're able to tie it. Well, for me, I'm really able to tie it into my business as well. It's a coaching therapy session because I'm a solopreneur.
Yeah.
And this is one of the biggest mistakes people make is they try to separate themselves from their business, their job, from everything. But we're human beings, and this is all tied together. And if you want anything in your life to be better, you have to be better. You have to become who you need to become. And I think therapy can help us see things that we can't see on our own.
Exactly.
And kick some walls down and kick some doors down just to show us what's going on inside and let go of the shit that has been holding us
you back.
Gosh, it's like, seriously, like every session is like, oh, I'm just cutting away anchors that are holding me back, And I give so much credit to the therapists and coaches, mentors in my life that have just shown me what is holding me back.
What do you think for somebody that's never been to therapy? I mean, because I'm sure there was a first for you. We haven't done it, but that is like the first big step, because I'm sure like afterwards it starts to maybe get a little, it's therapy. I'm going to therapy. I'm going to go talk to somebody about what's going on, and they're going to help me, and it's going to be great. But at first, it's that first step. How do you get to that first step? Or what is the best way to do that? Just look somebody up?
No. Well, so sure, if that's where you want to do. I personally, I'm big into relationships, so referrals.
Okay.
Because I've had some not bad therapy experiences, but sometimes you're sitting in there and you're like, they don't care about me. I feel like I'm being read a list of questions that they downloaded from their course 10 minutes before my session started,
Right.
And I'm looking for more. So maybe I would start with maybe a specialization. I think that's kind of the best, because I find that people who specialize are passionate about what it is they chose to be specialists in.
Yeah.
And then interview them. Sometimes I think we just take a default. We just go through the directory and say, okay, well, this person answered the phone, so I'm going to go there. And that sometimes is the best fit, and sometimes it's not. So pick 3, interview them, see how you connect.
Yeah.
If they aren't interested, or they just feel like you're just another number, if that works for you, great. If it doesn't, interview 3 more.
But the important thing is probably not to base your judgment of like therapy based off of your first session, or whoever you go to see, like, oh, well, this is what therapy is, and it sucks, and I don't want to do it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like
And it takes time.
it's like every profession, you got people that are great at it, and some people that are there to collect a paycheck.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so true.
Going to therapy, do you feel has helped you to self-process?
Totally. Absolutely. It's helped me to self-process, to process others and all of this. I mean, but here's the thing. I don't stop at therapy, right? Like I don't put a whole lot of expectation on therapy. And I think that might be why so many people get disappointed in therapy.
Yes.
Is they're like, I've got a therapist. I go once a week and I'm still effed up, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's because that's where the therapy stops once they walk out.
Compartmentalize. It's like people who go to church only on Sundays,
Right.
And then they're a shit show the rest
Exactly. Yeah.
Monday through Saturday.
You've got to incorporate
Yeah.
this stuff.
Yeah, totally.
And so therapy is a start. Reading books, implementation, doing the habits, reading every day. It's something that either inspires you or teaches you something new. Having a coach, working through this stuff, putting it all into practice.
Yeah.
Write down notes. If they record your session, listen to it again. Remind yourself of the work that you're doing, and do it all day, every day. Yes, it is hard. Yes, it is exhausting, or not necessarily exhausting, but it is. You're not going to find people around you that are doing the same thing. That's how rare it is.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to say, you ask your friends, oh, do you do this? Of course they don't.
The average person doesn't.
The average person does not. You have to be the one that does it. And you have to take that 100% responsibility for your life, your feelings, and where you want to go, and the legacy you leave behind.
That's powerful.
So now you're talking about the average person doesn't. And usually for most of us that are listening out there and for us, I mean, we're around the average people all the time. And we've talked about before on the podcast where associations are important. So when you're trying to come up, like, how do you get those, like, not necessarily disassociate from the people that you're around, but how do you get those other associations when you're trying to change your associations?
Yeah, like leveling up your network is really what it comes down to, right? Because I love that quote that you are the average of the 5 people you hang out the most.
Yeah.
Some people love it. Some people it scares.
That's like,
it can be terrifying.
Yeah.
Like that saying with your parents. Like, if you're hanging out with 5 losers, then what does that make you?
Yep, exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So I think there's a couple different ways to do that. Number one, and I think the number one rule for joy, happiness, contentment in life is to always be a seeker. Mm-hmm. So always be seeking something. And when you seek, you find. And be careful what you're seeking.
Right.
And this goes both directions, right? You can't buy in and just say, oh, if I seek positive stuff, only positive stuff comes. No, if you seek, you can see them, the people who complain all the time, the negative Nancys, the Karens of the world. Sorry, nice Karens. But
oh man, that is so bad having the name Karen.
I know
right now, yeah,
a little rough. But if you're looking for excuses to fail at something, then you will find them. And if you are seeking reasons to succeed and ways to succeed, you will find them. So you just keep seeking. And if you I've kind of run into a similar situation. Like, I'm at the point in my life where I'm starting to think of what the next level is. I'm starting to build technology companies. I'm investing in technology companies, and my current network is not in the same place. And I'm finding myself struggling, finding people to talk to about that, understanding what's coming into that. So I've joined a mastermind group.
Nice.
Of people who do that all day, every day. So now I'm going to be surrounded by people who are doing that. And you can do that on a micro level too, right?
Yeah.
If you're seeking spiritual connection, join a church or a group. If you're seeking a notary group, join Sign and Thrive.
There you go. That's the only one.
Right.
If you're joining like Taekwondo
or
Jiu-Jitsu.
Jiu-Jitsu.
One of those.
Yeah.
If you were going to learn Jiu-Jitsu, sorry.
No, it's all right.
If you were going to learn jiu-jitsu, you join a
community or a gym.
Is it the dojo?
A gym, a dojo.
Is it the dojo?
Dojo. Oh.
Uh-oh.
I'm thinking something else. I'm like, wait, dojo? No.
So whatever that is, you seek other people who have similar interests and that can raise your game, right? You're going to choose a dojo or a gym that has... Okay. I love it. You're going to choose one that has good reviews and reputation and is going to challenge you to do those things. And those groups, believe it or not, exist in every possible niche of human existence. You just have to seek them out.
That's the magic word is seek. Because most people complain, but they're not looking for the answers. They're just finding other people who they can complain to and offer, similar advice. Because they're going through the same thing.
I'll tell you what, they are seeking. They're seeking validation. And they're seeking other people who agree with their way of thinking so they can say, I told you so. This isn't going to work. I told you so.
Gotcha.
We're all seeking one way or the other, I think.
Yeah.
It's just what you ask for, what
That's
you're
huge.
looking for.
Yep.
That's awesome. So on the last podcast, we were kind of talking about obviously you have a notary business. That's part of your identity, but the big picture is so much bigger than just the notary business. But I think last time on the podcast, you guys go back and listen to episode 31. And you can find out about the briefcase and all the other stuff that you guys don't understand. Go back and listen to it. But last time, I think you were saying you were still trying to figure out like what that thing is going to be.
Yeah. What's next?
And now you have another book, under your belt, and it's been a while. What does that vision look like? Has it become clear, or are you still figuring it out? What do you think?
It feels really clear inside me, but to try to put that into words is difficult. I think it's coming from two different sides of the brain or parts of the universe or whatever it is. I know that writing is my passion.
Yeah.
So I know there's more books in me, and I know there's a very special book that is, I feel like, the reason I exist.
That is so amazing.
But it's not ready to come out yet. So I'm still becoming, right? I'm still becoming that. And my current business is a vehicle that is helping me become that.
That's so exciting to hear.
I'm publishing, and who knows where I go with this, but my vision is to be a beacon of love and light that inspires other people to get up off the couch of life and seize the moment and create the life that you've always wanted.
Yeah.
So whatever vehicle I happen to be in at the time, as long as I can do that, I'm going to be okay. And that's what I have total confidence in right now.
So that's what it is.
Perfect.
The notary business happens to be what helps people get to that point.
Yeah.
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 And it's helping him where you're at right now. Everything that you've gone through and that you've grown through, it's just helping you to become the person to do the thing that God created you to do. And unfortunately, you just don't know what that is yet.
Exactly. But I trust.
But it's
the journey.
exciting,
Yeah,
right?
it's exciting.
Isn't it super exciting?
I trust the process.
Yes.
Like I can't wait. There's this part of me that's like, I just can't wait to find out who I'm becoming.
Well, I would imagine part of it is also one of those things that when you look at the next thing that you're thinking about doing, is like, well, can this help or will this hurt? And if it's not going to hurt and it could possibly help, then let's go for it.
That's having that vision. I get to make those decisions because I have a vision for where I want my life to go. And I say no a lot more than I say yes. And I say yes to a lot more things than I probably should because that's just my personality. I'm number 7 on the Enneagram. I am all over. Like I get enthusiastic about everything. But I say no to a lot too because it's just not quite in alignment. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with what I say no to. It's just not fitting to where I'm going there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that is so awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah.
Right? Like I've always told you that. Like I know that there's a bigger, a higher purpose for me. And I'm so excited for what it is. And I don't even know what it is.
But don't you feel like, and I love that we get to talk about that quite a bit, but I love that, well, you tell me, does it feel like you're in alignment, like you're on the fast track to that, you're on the rail going there, whether it's through your Trust Inc. business, even your Legal Shield business was kind of in that role of leading and inspiring and getting people excited.
Huge.
And then here on this podcast, it's just like you're on a fast track to somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Just don't know where. Do you feel that?
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I know there's a book. Like I know 100% that there's a book. I just don't know what the book is yet.
Did you
That's a good
feel?
point.
And I felt that way for quite some time, for a while now.
Since you were 4?
No.
That's disappointing.
I don't even remember when I was 4. I'm like, what? Wait, what?
Oh wait. Did you feel like at a certain point, like you were losing control because when you're building something, when you're writing the book, it's like, okay, well, I need to put it out. I have to promote this thing. I have to push it. I have to put it on the social media, promote it, and do all these things. And then at a certain point, it's like things are happening. And I think that's the book doesn't need me. Like you're losing control of this book. It's like getting out of your hands.
Exactly. It took on a life of its own.
And it just flew away.
And that was contrary to what, I took a course, and I highly recommend this for anybody who wants self-publishing. Check out Self-Publishing School by Chandler Bolt. They have so many resources. It's an amazing community. And I learned how to do everything I needed to do to publish my book. Not to write it necessarily, right? Because most people skip ahead and they're thinking, they're worrying about the publishing part, the social media part.
Yeah.
None of that matters till you write a book. So sit down and write. Everything else will fall into place. But what happened is, even like I went to a special live webinar that they had, or a live event they had in Austin. I was like ready. I'm learning all this and I'm filling my head, and then it publishes. And I didn't have to do all those other things that you're supposed to do because it took on a life of its own. So I was like,
okay.
But I haven't put a social media post out yet. It's like, wait a minute, get back here.
Yeah.
It's because you had already built your network.
Yes, I had an audience, which was a huge help. But
Gotcha.
and the strategy that course taught me, Self-Publishing School, helped me build a launch team, I had things in place.
Yeah.
I just had the advantage I had was I had this huge loving community
Yes.
that
That's awesome.
wanted to support me, and they did. And then word of mouth, the tipping point, you know, we talk about Malcolm Gladwell, all of that happened.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And
Exciting.
last time we also talked about some demons that you had to face because this book is a culmination of your life. That's usually how it is. Like the first book, you put your whole life into the first book.
Yeah.
But you were saying like you had to face some demons when you were writing the first book.
Yeah.
Were there any new demons that you had to face writing the second book?
Any blocks?
Well, I think, and I think we got a chance to talk about resistance a little bit too the last time, but there's always, at least for me, when it comes to creative, even the stuff I love, I get this resistance. And Stephen Pressfield talks about this in The War of Art. But the resistance you feel more of it, the more impact your creative project could possibly have. So I run into that not only with writing the books, even I'm writing my third book now, and I've decided to scrap it completely.
Start fresh?
No, just not write it.
Really?
I'm 3 months in, and I've been really it was really tough to sit down every day and write. And I finally just sat down and I talked to myself, and I'm like, what?
The whole idea for the book, everything.
This
just
is
scrap it.
Yeah, I was like, this one's different. Like I used to go through this with Sign and Thrive all the time, but the voice would come in. No, this book's going to make a difference. You've got to write this book. This is going to change everything. So I wrote that book. And in the second book, I got a little bit of resistance, but I worked with Sandra, who was amazing. She was a great support, and it just fits so perfectly into what I teach. So that one came out pretty easy. Then this one, it just felt every day. It was like, you're a fraud, you're a fraud, you're a fraud. And I was dealing with that. And I'm like, well, is that obviously it's kind of negative. So I know that's the ego inner critic, but then also that spirit voice there too is like, you're not ready for this one. There's
more healing that needs to happen in order for that book to come out.
Or learning that. So it was going to be called From Side Hustler to Influencer. I just don't think it's time yet for that one. I'm going to turn it into 4 blog posts because I want to teach people what I know about writing a book, what I know about publishing a book, what I know about growing an email audience, and then what I did to grow a YouTube channel.
That's great.
So I'm going to just do that as a blog instead of a book. And then I'm moving on to the next books. I've got about 10 on my list of books to write.
So it's not completely scrapped.
Yeah, right. I'm going to just a pivot.
Kind of like a repurposing.
A repurposing or that pivot. I'm so sick of hearing the word pivot in 2020, but that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm like, you know what? This is not going to be a book. It's going to be a series of blog articles.
And you also can help your community and not lose the message. You still get to put that message out there.
Right.
Totally. And that's what's really important, because what happens is when books like Sign and Thrive work and people get inspired and they start doing things, they get out there and start doing things. There's a lot of people sharing their message now too and helping others.
Yeah.
And if they want to write a book, or a best-selling book, if they want to write or create a YouTube channel, those things I've done, so I can reach back and I can share that information as well. And that's something I learned from Brendan Burchard too, is, there's plenty for everyone. Reach back, show them the way. And maybe they'll pass me. Maybe they'll start doing other things bigger and better than I've ever done, which is totally fine too, as long as the community is being served.
Dude, now that I think about it, what if you're stuck and you're helping somebody and helping them get to another level and they pass you and you're like, oh man, they passed me and I was helping them out. What if they reach down and be like, hey, come on, let's go. Because you helped me. Let's go to the top. And you guys pull each other up. It doesn't have to be like, oh my God, he's going to pass me.
Yeah.
In theory, that's exactly how it would work. What I've learned is it's not always that immediate and that reciprocal. Mm-hmm. When you reach back and help somebody, even if they do pass you, who you have become in helping them, it usually is going to either shift your direction or go a different direction. But that reciprocity that you get from giving, the giver's gain idea, it comes from somewhere else. So you're helping that person, they're skyrocketing this way. And then all of a sudden, one of those other little ventures that you've got, all of a sudden gets the investor or you get the inspiration that takes you in a different way. So your return on investment for that comes from a different direction sometimes.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's like using the knowledge and that, like sometimes you'll see the results in something else that's unrelated to where you learned where you cut your teeth, I guess they call it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it gets a little woo woo, right?
Yeah.
Because the logical part is, well, you do this and then you're going to get this, or you invest this and then you're going to get that. But there's this other magical force
that's going
that says, okay, you did good, and you've got the right energy, and you attract the right person for something else into your life.
It's kind of like karma, for those of you that believe in that. When you put good out there, when you put good out there, it comes back, and it may be in different forms, different ways, something that you didn't expect, but it always comes back.
But you got to be seeking it. And I think that's the thing too, is, you see a lot of people who help people and then they complain, oh, I helped them do this and they didn't even say thank you. And they didn't give me a piece of the my 20%. Twin. But if they would seek it, if they would look for it in other places, they'd probably find it. It shows up in other ways. Maybe it's extra loving from their partner. Maybe it's a lottery win. Maybe it's who knows the way that it shows, but it's there.
Yeah.
Seekers find.
Yep. Another shirt. Seekers find. No.
Yeah.
20%.
Yeah. So we've talked about, some of the things that you've already done and the books that have come out. What is the next? What are you working on next?
A lot of things. So there is a updated version of Sign and Thrive coming out to update with some of the pandemic and the remote online notarization stuff. Plus that inner critic, whenever I read it, I'm like, oh my gosh, people read this? So I got to make some tweaks and stuff like that. There's some weird grammatical and spelling things that still made it through 3 editors. So I'm going to update that. I've got another book coming out, which I'll announce later. That's going to be another collaboration. And then I have been working on a remote online notarization platform. And we've got some other really cool technology pieces coming, and hopefully a new podcast coming out towards the end of the year as well.
Excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Wow. I can't imagine once we have you back,
74 more episodes.
What's new?
No, we gotta get you in here sooner than that.
Well, I'll tell you,
74 is a lot.
I know it seems like a lot, but what you guys do, having kids and pets in a household to manage, and this podcast and a business and a job.
And work,
I don't know how you guys do this, and I don't know how you made time for this today, but thank you so much for doing so. I love it.
Well, we don't know either.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Happen.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, totally. We appreciate your support, your love, your guidance, your mentorship, all of it. It's great to...
And also talking to our audience, sharing your story with our audience, because I'm sure, that's something that also helps, helps people. There's people that are going through things similar to what you've been going through, or they will go through it, and it helps.
Yeah, or they have a dream and they don't know how they're going to get there, and
trust the process. It's coming, but it's totally my pleasure. I love being here. I love you guys, and I love talking to your audience as well. So anything I can do to support.
Appreciate that.
Anything you got before we get out of here? You know what? There's one thing that we completely forgot about. To go to oppositesattractpodcast.com, go to the support the show. You guys know what to do. Go to the support the show tab, click on the Amazon link. You can buy something through there. It'll help us out. You can go to Trust Inc. directly, trustinkusa.com to get any, if you're buying a house, refinancing, or any of that. If you want to start a podcast, use promo code OAP for Opposites Attract Podcast, and you'll get your free trial.
Yep. And happy birthday to me.
Happy birthday to Sonia.
It's not until tomorrow, but hey, this is my birthday podcast. It's on the 7th.
Yeah. We get out of here.
Oh, thank you for that extra.
In there for you. Well, cheers.
And until next time, you guys, bye.
Bye.